Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole...
My great aspiration, my greatest ambition is to be so good. Now, in that way, I'm tiresome, as I suppose, to live with, because I want to be a fantastic human being.
I am the greatest.
We're not disputing that, Cassius, but how does Sonny Liston feel about it?
He can't feel but one way, and let's take everything I say and like it. Because February the 25th, I'm going to take back my job. I'm the champ. He's no champ. He's a tramp.
When you see men fall, don't laugh. Learn. Learn. Because you're on your way up. And the things that tempt people to fall, you and I are not free from that temptation.
Yo, what up, peoples, peace, blessings. Back, we live, revamped. Feels good to be here. Wednesday's right around the corner. Hope all is well with everybody. Shout outs to the people in the building. Shout outs to Jason, shout outs to Sydney, shout outs to Rob. I hope all is well with everybody so far. Thank you for the love and support on the channel. My writers, my poets, salutes to you. I'm looking forward to this particular discussion. Ever since it was brought up last week, I kind of been salivating a little bit over it. This should actually be interesting. I'm going to bring Jason and Sydney up. Do me a solid. Make sure you go support them. Go show love to anything that they got going on. If you're not following Rob, go follow Rob. Matter of fact, like, share, repost. Let the people know we live. This is one discussion you do not want to miss out on. Enough with the pleasantries. Let's bring everybody up. Sydney, Jason, what is up?
Hello.
What's the word? What's the word?
Not too much. How are you guys doing?
Well, I'm okay. I am nursing a back injury though. But
no.
Yeah, yes. So stupid. Yesterday I was on a podcast. I'm co-hosting a podcast, and when I talk for a long period of time, my throat gets scratchy and I end up coughing. And so I coughed when my back was bowed, and I threw up my back, coughing.
Oh my God.
Yikes.
I threw up my freaking back coughing. How embarrassing is that?
Yay for
So-
aging.
No,
No
right.
joke. But yeah, so I'm now nursing that. It just pisses me off because this is the first time I've ever had to deal with that. And I had spent like the last 4 days going to the gym, so now I'm laid up and I can't go to the gym and I'm frustrated. So yeah, first world problems, I guess.
Hey, I had a first time injury today as well. I got stung by a bee for the first time ever in my life. And
Old
yeah.
news.
It's funny because I'm terrified of bees. Like, I respect honeybees and I think they're the coolest organism. But if I hear the zzz in the background, I'm like, I'm in the house, I'm gone. And I don't know why I was stupid, but there was a bee in the pool. And I'm like, oh, poor bee, let me help you get out. And so I like put my skirt underneath it to try and flick it out. And it was like, oh, I'm just going to actually crawl up away from the water. And it wasn't actually trying to sting me. It just caught the stinger on my skin when it was walking, and it panicked and took off. And yeah, so I got stung, but it wasn't as bad as I expected because I was so terrified of bees my whole life. I fully expected it to be like getting stabbed with like an 8-inch knife. And I was like, wait, that was it?
K-bar.
Like, like it felt like I jammed my finger in a door for probably an hour, but it went away after a while. And I was like, oh, wow, I was terrified for not for nothing, because I mean, bee swarms are still not something I really want to deal with, but yeah.
Baking soda and water mixed with paste and put that on the site. It'll draw out the venom. Either that or a cucumber, a slice of cucumber, or a slice of potato.
Noted. Too bad I wasn't in the kitchen. But for next time, hopefully there's not one. But
yeah. And if you need something that's just going to work really fast to help to numb the pain, ammonia.
I wonder if that's why the pool water helped, because there's the chemical. I don't know. I'm guessing there's probably no. There's
Different
probably
kind of
not.
chemical.
Okay.
No, that's sodium hydroxide, also
Okay.
known calcium chloride, also known as chlorine.
Okay. Also, I did collect some insults, ancient insults, if you wanted to hear some of the words I found.
Spicy.
So this one was the most exciting to me, or one of them. So I found out Jack and Jill has an alternative meaning. Jack is a man with a history, and a Jill is a woman with not as many blessings in her appearance. So when we have Jack and Jill, I was like, oh God, I don't want to know about the backstory of that rhyme now.
Oh, don't worry. It's already scripted in my head. I've already created the story. It's already there.
This one I thought you'd appreciate. A nincompoop, the original meaning, it comes from non compos mentis, which means not mentally competent. And it refers to a henpecked husband, or a husband that has been repeatedly nagged by his wife to the point that he's given up himself.
I know plenty of nincompoops.
I didn't realize that name had such a distant past. I very much enjoyed that, because I always thought that was something from like my generation or the one before. So I also really liked a snob is somebody who pretends to be what they're not, a self-important person. And I'm like, wow, that has held its meaning for quite a long time. This actually has Roman connections. Some of their words were modified and put together to create snob over time. So I found that one enjoyable. Also, shut your potato trap. That is a way to tell someone that they're talking too much. And
let me guess, someone comes from Ireland?
Yes, this one I think This one was from England, I think.
Same
it was
difference.
either England or both America and England. But yeah, definitely definitely from that region, especially with the full potatoes. And then my personal favorite, Death's Head upon a Mop Stick. Basically somebody that looks so messed up that you wonder that they're like, how are you even functioning right now? But those were from between 1811 and 1890.
Yikes. Yikes. So some of those are still being used today. Nincompoop, I know for sure is being used still. The potato trap, potato mouth part, that's funny. I'm gonna have to try that one out.
My father was always very creative with his clapbacks, and he would often say, "Shut that festering hole under your nose."
That was very. I like the imagery there. Like, damn, is that bad? Okay.
I always love people that get descriptive when they're angry.
All right, let's do this because you said a word and then turned into another word, and I wanted to elaborate on it more last week. Now I kind of really want to get into it because as men and women, when we are in business or sitting at a table or we're on the phone, we have a disagreement or we're trying to get to the bottom of a misunderstanding. We don't necessarily use these phrases in the conversations, but you can tell that they're being used. So I wanted to just touch on that, like the differences between the two, why they're important, why I have noticed that a lot of folks misuse them. Like, I can understand having opposing people trying to prove a point on one side versus the other, but when you're using these words, you're not really using them in the way that you're supposed to. So it kind of drowns out the true intentions behind the discussion. So let's kind of just start there. Doesn't really matter who kicks it off. I just wanted to throw that out there.
So I love this distinction. I love the contrast. And you're right. A lot of people don't know what these words mean. More people will know what straw man means than what steel man means, because straw man is used a lot, unfortunately. And really, if you want a key word that's going to help you understand the both of these, the one key word is integrity. There is a focus of integrity in an argument, either with steel man or straw man. With a straw man, there's a lack of integrity. And with a steel man, there is an abundance of integrity. And the reason why I say that is because a straw man is going to try to break down an argument, not break down it into parts, but break down the essence or the strength of an argument in order to create an easy win. It is negative manipulation at its best. So if you were having an argument with someone saying we have to regulate AI or we should have some regulations on AI, and someone said, oh, you just want to destroy or take away all technological innovations and have us live in the Stone Age, that would be like a straw man argument. Whereas a steel man, if you were saying we should have some regulations on AI, you might say something like, okay, so you're probably concerned with the ethical and with clear ethical and safety guidelines. AI could cause unintended harm or be misused, and you're advocating for responsible guardrails to avoid that. So that actually strengthens the argument. The reason why you would strengthen an argument is in order to have the best possible outcome, which is an understanding created by both people based on the strongest intent of that argument. When you are going for a straw man argument, you just want to win and make someone else seem like they're an idiot, like they're a buffoon, that they're intellectually inferior. But when you have a steel man argument, what you're saying is, I want you to be the best. I want you to pose the best argument that you can. So we have irrefutable proof that we have come to an agreement or some sort of understanding that is based on the strength of both arguments, where we've been able to address all of the issues or as many of the issues as possible that we can think of in order to come to some kind of resolution. So one is about attacking, while the other one is about building up in order to create some sort of consensus. Well, an argument and debate can actually be considered the same thing. So argument and debate, really, there is not much of a difference between the two. It's all in how they are used. An argument really is nothing more than a display or a position. You are creating a position that's an argument. When two people argue, what they're doing is depending on how they argue, they could be trying to create discourse in order to find better understanding, or it could be an attack. Really, the difference is it ethical or is it unethical?
I've noticed that too, especially when there's a main topic that is kind of controversial and is spread throughout men and women. Let's say it's this wage gap argument that they constantly use. And then you have guests on the show and they're trying to say, well, men have oppressed women since such and such and such and such. And then someone like Andrew Wilson to say, well, provide to me proof and evidence that what you say is true. And then what will happen is, when presented with this, they turn to trying to change the subject, or they try to venture off into something else that has nothing to do with what the actual question was. If I say to you, show me evidence that this is actually happening, then you start talking about something else, then you're not really trying to get to the bottom of what's happening here. It sounds more or less like you're being evasive, and either you don't know and you're trying to dodge it and you don't want to look stupid, or you feel cornered and you're trying to find a way out of it by turning it into something else. And that's what I usually run into with a lot of these discussions. It's not just about this. I just use that as an example. But
so I see where you're going with this. That's not a straw man argument. That's a deflection, which is a completely different argument style. It's still janky. It's still absolutely reprehensible, I think, because if you're going to try and pull in other things and try to distract the argument by rabbit trailing and trying to deflect the argument and then make it about something else, that's not anything useful. However, if you're going to give me an argument and you're going to say, well, this is let's use the wage gap, and someone says, oh yeah, the wage gap exists because men are constantly trying to oppress women and just want them barefoot and pregnant in the bedroom, or in the kitchen and in the bedroom. And so that would be a straw man argument by reducing it to that attack. But if you're saying, well, here's really what I believe, if you say, well, show me the proof, and then they go off and rabbit trail about different things, and then they bring up the Civil War of 1863, where where President Lincoln decided that he was going to make a decree, that's more of a deflection.
Right.
Has nothing to do with it. Okay, how does it deal with what we're talking about? Well, it's like I said, and then they try to confuse the issue even more. It's like, wow, you are dumb as a box of hair. And it just really shows that they don't have an argument. They just want to make noise. There's a big difference between having an argument, even one that's based on a straw man argument, and one that's just about making noise, because you realize that they don't have two brain cells to knock together to create a fire.
So in essence, straw man is minimizing that person, like trying to demonetize them in their argument and make them seem like their argument is either insufficient or invalid, or like.
Demonetize the argument, yes. Demonetize the person, no. That's called an ad hominem.
Oh, okay.
So when you are attacking the argument and reducing that to something that is shameful, that is a straw man. When you are saying, yeah, you would say that because you're a worthless man and you probably smoke crack, that's an ad hominem.
Okay, so it's the problem with the idea rather than the fact that it came from a certain the idea is not coming from. Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. That I vaguely remember this from like 15 years ago in high school, but it's been a while since I've done these types of exercises. Yeah. But it's good for the refresher, because it very much parallels what I've experienced in climate change and the pushback that you get when you argue with people. Because that is something you'll get, especially when you try and discuss solutions. It's more so with like the movement away from fossil fuels that people really get upset by, and they'll throw out like, oh, you want to go back to the stone, like you want to live without anything, and we're not gonna have any medical facilities, we won't have food, our medical supply is going to collapse, blah 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 blah. Like they explain how much of a tragedy it's going to be if you do this one specific thing, and it's, as a professional, it's very frustrating dealing with that, because it does have an impact on the communication with other people that are still interested in learning. Like it's very much a detraction from the conversation, and it almost kind of has the same energy in my mind as like a heckler being in the back of the auditorium just being like, you suck, or like nobody cares about this. Like it's very frustrating to have to deal with, especially when you're trying to make progress in something that you think matters and needs to be important to people.
And the unfortunate thing is that you touched on something that's very important. People who are making these arguments are doing so without any knowledge, and they are being emotionally reactive, and so they attack the argument and try to make it about something else, or try to make it try to diminish the argument, or to make themselves more important, without having any kind of background in what they're talking about. All they want to do is make noise. This is why whenever I go into an argument, I make sure I know as much as possible on both sides. I want to know what you're going to argue, and I want to know what I'm going to know what I'm going to say. It's why I'm very hard to argue against, because first of all, I'm very well read on many, many topics. And so it's very hard to find something that I'm not going to be somewhat well versed in. Plus, I'm very good at extrapolating and finding ways of being able to support arguments. So that makes it hard as well. But it's the fact that I also research. I do research, and I always am looking for the truth, not what is popular, not what is accepted. Because just because something is accepted does not make it right or the truth. Just because something is denied does not make it false or wrong. So it's important to really understand all sides of the argument, and then to present your argument as well as possible in order to create that question of, so is my position really valid? If not, what else could there be? So there has to be a willingness to question your own beliefs as well as a desire to assert your beliefs.
And that's where people miss the mark.
Yep.
I was gonna add, you also have to be willing to weigh different options so you can decide which one is the correct answer. Because I've seen time and time again when people like, oh, let me Google it. They click the very first link and they read it. And they're like, oh, that's the answer. And I'm like, but you literally just picked either like Wikipedia or some like fake website, or they'll just pick facts from random, like, oh, I saw this on Twitter, I saw this on social media, I saw this on Facebook, like it's true. Okay, well, no, I'm sorry, it's not, but I saw it, so it's true, it has to be true. I don't know what it is, but we've become very, very, I don't know, the undiscerning of things that we absorb into our minds. People have seemed to have lost their ability to kind of differentiate and decide whether or not they should even be reading those things.
It's called lazy.
Lazy, and you going into these spaces already. You got it in your head that you're right.
Yeah.
Nobody is willing to bend on what they've been taught.
And people look to prove themselves. Like, they'll literally be like, oh, no, there's this one fact that agrees with what I said. And there it is. So despite the whole book, 385 other pages, like, this one sentence makes me right.
Lack of research, lack of reading. You only know one side of the world. You're not very cultured. I haven't been to London, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit here and act like, oh, I have to disrespect what they do. I know they have a certain way that they handle business and how they treat their people and how men and women value each other over there, so on and so on. But I would never go to somebody's platform with this mindset that, oh, I know everything. You can't tell me nothing, and I'm about to make you look stupid up here, and you can't say nothing. That right there, you already making yourself a large plate of humiliation. That's why I don't understand why people even go in front of the camera and have these conversations with the type of mindset that we have in the first place.
It's because they surround themselves with echo chambers, and they believe that what they've been surrounded with is right, and they will defend their position as if it was their identity. And here's a dangerous thing: when people surround, or when people make their art or their position their identity, what they have done is they have set themselves up for potential disaster. Because by making your position your identity, you've basically said, I can't be wrong. And because I can't be wrong, this can't be wrong. And if I'm wrong, that means I'm bad. I have to be a good person, which means I have to be right. It's a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress that goes into this idea that I have to be right, because if I'm not right, I'm not good. And one does not equate the other, but in their minds, they do, because they have been brought up to believe that. And I have no problem being able to hold two opposing points of view and saying they both can possibly be true is a skill. It's not something you just have overnight. It is a skill you have to develop. But by developing that skill, you are able to consider that both sides have merit, and you're able to investigate both sides with fervor and with vigor, and come to the best conclusion that is possible. That's what I've done with many issues, like climate change, like the whole gender issue, like sexuality, like many different things. Say again?
Flat Earth.
Don't get me started on that shit. Those people are just I can't say that word. Never mind.
I was thinking about that the whole time when you're saying, yeah, it's like you have to balance the worldviews, and I'm like, there's definitely a crowd that cannot balance two worldviews.
Yeah. It's funny because when you talk to any astronaut, and they look at a flat Earth, they're like, "Are you stupid? Like, what? Would you rather have any kids that survived?"
There was a flat earther that, so I guess he either got GoFunded to go to space, or he, like, a scientist was like, I will take you to space and show you. And he went up there and he was like, I think that they dosed me or something. Like, he's swearing that they drugged him or something.
And that just goes to show the power of one's own belief.
I know.
And the need to make one's identity their belief. If he began to believe that the Earth was round, he would have to question everything else about himself.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to have to do that. That would be traumatic for him.
Yeah.
But those are also the people that end up usually having unfortunate circumstances in life, and they end up taking themselves out of the gene pool. Thank goodness.
See, I don't think it's about embarrassing one person or the other, even though I know the one that is utilizing the straw man tactic is intentionally trying to make you look a certain way. And it's not necessarily you, it's actually, this is what I believe. I want you to accept what I believe. So I'm going to get up here, dismantle what you're trying to articulate to me. I'm going to convince everybody else that I'm right. And then we're going to continue on with life. And the truth always seems to bother people, even though we ask for it. Tell me the truth. Be honest with me. I can take it. I would rather you tell me and be blunt than to lie to me. But then when you start to tell people the actual truth, it triggers them in ways where they just start snapping. Their whole consonants change, their body language change, their face change. They go exorcist on you. At the beginning of the show or the conversation, you're on even playing field. By the mid portion of it, it starts to heat up. By the end of it, y'all throwing beer cans. Well, they're throwing all the tomatoes and all of the rotten food from the produce section. You still calm, and you're kind of just laughing at them at this point, because it's like, you don't really know how you look up here. Like you're really throwing a fit. We're just talking. I thought the whole point was to figure out the truth. What's right? What's real and what isn't. But
I think a lot of people just can't separate, like, logic and emotion. It's very hard for people to prize them apart, especially in conversation and when facts are the only thing that should matter.
It's funny. Viktor Frankl had a very famous quote. I'm going to butcher it, but I'll get the essence of it. Where it basically says, in between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in this space is the ability to choose. And in that choice lies your freedom. So you can choose how you're going to react. And you can choose how you decide you're going to approach the situation. But Eric Gentry created this therapy model called forward-facing therapy. And it is focused. Yeah, which is basically what I said. It wasn't word for word, but close enough. But with forward-facing therapy, it focuses on taking someone from post-traumatic response to post-traumatic growth. And the difference is that with post-traumatic response, there is that stimulus and then the reaction. There is no space. And it's as if the emotions are driving the emotions are driving the bus when it comes to how a person makes their decisions. And that's because emotions are the strongest stimulus that we have. It is the strongest driver because it is the driver of survival. Without that drive, without emotional instinct, thank you, human beings would be doomed to extinction. And because of it, we have the will to survive. But when you are in a situation, or when you are living a life where you believe everything is a threat, you respond with an emotional cue that is going to be akin to survival.
I had a teacher that once gave us the example of, imagine if every like zebra and lion and elephant and whatever that you saw on the prairie didn't have the instinct to move. And so you just went out there and saw all of these animals just like laid out in the sun, not wanting to move around. He's like, those animals would be dead. You have to have some sort of instinct to exist. And he was tying that into our instinct to succeed and like keep pushing forward and stuff like that. But I always remember that because I'm like, that's a good point, because I've had friends that have really, really struggled with depression, and a lot of them can't fathom that getting up and moving around will actually help them. And it's like there's so many things that are natural in general to people, but we kind of try and squash our humanness, I guess, in this modern world, it seems. I almost wonder if some of this dysfunction comes from that type of like suppression, I guess, because we're forcing ourselves into some mold that we're not really meant to be like, because we're not meant to sit at desks. We're not meant to be boxed up in a house. Like, we're supposed to be outdoors and active and be familial, community oriented, and like be doing things with our hands and our brains and stuff. But here we are on social media just all day long.
It's interesting, right? Because when I was a kid still, I never limited myself to anything. I didn't look at the world like, oh, this is Washington, this is the nation's capital, this is the only place in the world for me. I never thought like that. I always said that there was more out here because that's what I saw. That's what I observed from just TV itself. And when it came to like cultures, I knew mine wasn't the only one. I knew that dating was a variety of different shapes, sizes, and colors. Education was a lot more broad than what they try to offer you in certain elements that you grew up in. And so with that being said, I could never see me just having a conversation with one group of people. I could never limit my thinking to, oh, go and hip hop, because I knew there was country, I knew there was jazz, and everything has its own elements and essence to it that is beautiful and should be celebrated and appreciated for what it is. A lot of folks do not look at life that way. They're so, I don't even want to say chastened, but it's like you're just stuck in this one little box and you refuse to go anywhere else with it. So when you try to have these conversations, you might be able to disarm them for a second, but it's only going to be but for so long before they revert back to what they're accustomed to. Because when you're used to it, it's hard for you to see anything else. I just never been like that. That's why it's easy for me to listen to somebody speak about a book I never read, or it's easier for me to say, all right, this makes sense. Appreciate it. Thank you for the information. Let me go ahead and figure this out for myself, and then I'll come back later on if I feel like something you say was not what I researched, but you don't get that anymore. So getting into any conversations with anyone who is presenting this type of argument against you, what do you do moving forward with them? Is there a such thing as actually being able to get someone to let their guard down as far as what they already got stuck in their head? How do you deal with that?
Carefully.
I was about to say alcohol.
Yeah, I tend to deal with those kinds of people as little as possible, and if I have to, I make sure they know how I feel about them, because I have a deep-seated resentment for stupidity. Like deep-seated, like it's visceral.
This is why we get along.
Say again?
This is why we get along.
And when I see someone who is just stupid, someone who just doesn't know, so someone who lacks the information, but they have the zeal to really either understand or to want to have a better understanding, I'm willing to work with them. If they're willfully ignorant, I mean, the only thing to do is find them the quickest way to hell possible.
Yeah, it does. It definitely depends on their. I mean, in my experience, if people have that unwillingness to learn, it definitely goes deeper than that. Like they almost always have other issues too. It's not just their unwillingness to listen, but they often have other, like they might be obstinate, they might be self-centered, they might be like egotistical, full of themselves, you know. But if you have to deal with that person, such as if they are a family member or someone that you have to have direct contact with, or even a coworker, I found really the best way is to just avoid any topics that involve that type of dissent. Like, if you don't want to engage in those types of conversations, if you're trying to avoid that type of discussion, it's best to just not go for those topics. But if you are trying to communicate with somebody that's being or has a history of being difficult, one of the best ways, if this exchange matters and you want to actually go through with it, is to really meet them where they're at. If you're trying to work somebody through a really difficult mindset for their benefit, you really have to meet them right where they are and start moving the goalpost inwards, based on their comfort level. Because with people that are very deeply into beliefs, as we said earlier, it's part of their whole worldview, and you can't. These people aren't just going to be like, "Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Like, let me just forget about that old idea and just go on." Like, many people, their friend groups, their the things that they go to, like whether they go to church or clubs or groups or whatever. It's all intertwined with the same types of belief systems. So they would have to pry themselves out of those social circles. I'm watching my friend go through that with her siblings who are engaged in certain people. But yeah, it you to do this, it really requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of understanding, a lot of compassion. It's not something everyone can do. And there also has to be albeit it could be slight, but there has to be a willingness for them to change, for them to listen. Because if that person has no willingness to listen to you, there's no point in having that discussion. There's nothing you can do. Because once somebody has decided they're closing off their minds, they're only going to open their minds when they want to. But yeah, it does take a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of patience to work with people that are very stuck in these types of views. So if anybody's ever going through that, give yourself patience and give yourself breaks and stuff. Don't try and bulldoze through something like that, because if you try and force somebody into a belief system that is not meshing with who they are, you can ruin your relationship with them. You can also have them like cut you off. So it's important to be very cautious if you do try and engage with somebody in the hopes to change viewpoints they might have.
One of the main reasons why I enjoy those discussions is, well, for me personally, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but it's because I get to hear your experience. Like, this is how you really live. This is how you really feel. But let me tell you something. This is your life, and then this is my life. Now we're clashing, trying to blend our experiences together. Clearly, they're not going to. What do we do with that? I'm willing to see this through. I don't think you are. That's what I get when I watch these discussions. When I see it in real life, like you stated, I already know that I'm probably just wasting my breath, and it's probably better for me to just not say nothing. Like I've had too many conversations with a person, family members and all that, and we'll start to talk about it. I'll instinctively think, oh shit, I know this is going to, if I say this, it's going to trigger them off the break. Because what I'm going to say is not going to be popular. You're not going to like it. So let me go ahead, wrap it up, so we don't even do this, because once you start it, you can't stop it. And it can get messy depending on how well you are, like Jason has said, how experienced you are in having these type of back and forth with people. Some folks are good at this, some people aren't. Some people embrace it. They like, I keep saying his name, but Andrew Wilson on whatever, he don't mind pissing you off. He don't mind triggering you. He do it to everybody. He do it to feminists. He does it to OnlyFans models. He does it to Fresh and Fit. He don't care. He don't like, it's fun for him. And the reason why I think that he is so successful at what he does, for one, is simply he don't give a shit, which you shouldn't. But he knows how to approach these situations. And I think that is a lot of what Jason was describing earlier in the stream. If you're going to have these type of discussions, make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you're fully equipped to do that dance.
If you're going to do that dance, you have to make sure that you know what the outcome is, what the outcome that you want to reach. Because if you're doing it just to prove yourself right, you're going to lose every single time, and it's going to be frustrating as hell. And so you need to know what exactly you want to get out of that interaction when you're dealing with someone who is of lesser intelligence, which is a nice way of saying that they are a fucking idiot. If you're dealing with someone like that who is belligerent, who is just in their own way, and you need to work with them, make sure you know what it is you want to get out of it, and make sure you have a clear path. Part of my studies in well, I guess we'll call it psychological warfare, is my ability to do something called word seeding, where I will get someone to lead the conversation a certain way based on the words that I use for the outcome that I want. And continue to use these words in a way that gets them curious, where they're asking questions and they're making statements, where all that I'm doing is seeding words and making sure my body language and my tone are engaging, and that they are encouraging them to go down this line. And this is a tactic that is used in many of the three-letter agencies, as well as government elite organizations, where they use this as a way of being able to interrogate or to influence covert sensation.
Just like the power of suggestion kind of deal.
Yeah, except the suggestion is manufactured. It's manufactured as a suggestion. There's a book called Epsilon. I think it's called the Epsilon Protocol. It was written by Chase Hughes. You can find it on Amazon. And if you do read this book, I want to caution you, because by the end of the book, you're going to be convinced that free will is an illusion.
I'm already halfway there, so. I'll check this out.
Yeah.
Do you think it's easier to have a difficult conversation like that with somebody that you don't know or somebody that you do know?
Doesn't matter. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. Because you're not dealing with the person, you're not dealing with reputation, you're dealing with their own triggers, their own emotional states. This is why conversation and knowing how to frame conversations is so important and sometimes really deadly. Because you can take someone that you don't know, build a rapport like that, and then get them wanting to move in a direction that you have framed for them. You're funneling them down a certain path like cattle. And really that's a great way of viewing it. And honestly, getting back to the topic at hand, because this is really important. When you steel man someone, you can steel man someone in order to get them to appreciate you, so that they arrive at the conclusion you want them to arrive at.
It's all in how you do it. Yeah, from your approach to your body language to the eye contact to your confidence. I mean, like, everything really matters. And I agree. It doesn't really make a difference if it's a stranger or somebody that you know personally.
Somewhat. Salespeople know some of this, but they fall under a certain lens. I find that salespeople,
salespeople.
Well, any salesperson, whether it be a used car salesman, which is like the typical sleazy salesperson who uses manipulation, they can use this only to a certain point because of what they're trying to gain. It's all what your outcome is. Most salespeople are looking for something called compliance. They're looking for persuasion.
Yeah.
And persuasion is defined as the ability to get a yes at least once because the conditions are more favorable than a no.
Okay.
So that's persuasion.
Yeah.
What people that I learn from, what they're looking for is they're looking for two things. They're looking for influence, or they are looking for embodiment. So influence is the idea of buying in to an ideal and living that ideal. Embodiment is also known as what have I called it before? There's persuasion, there's influence, and then there's I forget what the third level is by name, but basically this is the idea of getting someone to not only believe in it, but also to want to make sure that it is always on top of mind and that other people are aware of it as well. They are basically conspiring with you to get something completed or get something achieved. And that is like top tier right there, where you have effectively brainwashed them to the point where they want what you are selling. They want other people to want it as well.
Salespeople, they seem like, well, they're just doing their job. So I'm not really, I don't feel no type of way towards them. How do you feel about lawyers?
They have a role. They're very good at argumenting. They're very good at. They're somewhat good at negotiation, but again, it's very limited. They have a very specific scope for what they do. Depending on the lawyer, they're going to have an argument style that is going to be for the certain outcome. I find that there are some good lawyers and there are some bad lawyers. The good ones know how to argue very well, know exactly what the other points are, what the counterpoints are going to be, and they prepare for them. It's really not much different than a master debater. If you say that too fast, it sounds like something else.
Yeah.
But if you have someone who's an expert at debating, law is very much like that. It is based on the philosophy of what is right and what is just, and then arguing that from a certain perspective. And then there are the ones who just try to manipulate the system, and those only get so far. And then there are ones that just want to get the easiest path forward. Yeah, and those ones they all have a place. Bottom feeders too, but it's all in how you really practice law. I think lawyers actually do have a need in society, but I think that need, especially for defense attorneys, needs to be better defined. Because the need for a defense attorney is not to get their client off if they have committed a crime, but it is to make sure that the defendant's rights are not violated during the investigation of whether their guilt is established or not.
I got a question for both of you, especially seeing as how you're both married. I was. Does this exist for you in relationships? The straw man, steel man thing, does that have any effect on you in your house? Have you seen it in other couples? This one I had to ask it because it like just hit me, because I remember back in 2008 having similar situations like this, and I don't know if people do it now, but matter of fact, I ain't gonna say I know. I do know. I see it all the time. So, can a relationship survive with these two opposing phrases existing within that household or that structure.
So, for me, my wife used to try straw man arguments, and I shut that shit down fast. I let her know exactly what they were, that I knew what they were, that I knew what she was trying to do, and yeah, I made sure to just kind of cut it off at the head. And we do have steel man arguments where I will let her know that that this is what I think that she's going for, and then we'll spend some time helping her to better articulate her argument, so that we can have a better discussion and then move from there. We don't have many straw man arguments anymore, because I let her know that's it's toxic and it will not be allowed in our relationship. So we've moved on from that fairly quickly, actually.
Yeah, I'd say my husband and I are probably in the same boat. Granted, I don't know as much about the arguments, so I've never like, hey, you can't use that device, that literary device on me. But I'm more than certain we've had our moments where we've done that to each other. I've come from a mother that wasn't very emotionally put together when she would argue, and so early on I was not very emotionally put together when I would argue. So I imagine I probably did use the straw man quite a bit. I imagine I used some other low blow techniques, but I have since grown from that as well. I dedicate a lot of my free time to self-development and just education in general. So I have made efforts to make my argument styles more effective, more constructive, and less childish. It definitely takes some work to build the habit if it's not something you were raised into. But it's 100% worth it to pay attention to how you argue with you and your partner or your family members or your friends or whoever you might be having unconstructive, I think I already said this, unconstructive conversations. It's very beneficial to actually pay attention to how you communicate with people, because I think more than we realize, our relationship problems are probably more having to do with our conversation, like how we communicate with each other, than actual problematic behaviors. But that's more so from my perspective, so I imagine other people have a different experience. But anyways, yeah, it's important to pay attention to how you argue, because it really does make a difference once you start to actually care about how you're communicating with your spouse. And it shows a respect to them and to yourself to care about how you communicate. So yeah, this is a note to everyone. Make sure that you're actually arguing constructively and being kind to your partner and listening to both perspectives, because both of your perspectives matter.
Well said. I don't think it can exist. And I'm with Jason on that. Go ahead and eliminate that right away. You do not want those extra problems in there. I think that's probably one of the main issues that come up. I'll save that for another time, but a lot of thought-provoking information shared here. Thank you both for your insight I hope this helps somebody. No more need for confusion on what it is and which one is the bad one and which one is the good one, and all the in-betweens. Now you got a better understanding. Take it with you, apply it, and see how it work out for you. I think it'll do wonders for a lot of our communication with different people now. Shout out to SM for pulling up to the stream. Shout out to Deanna Young from on IG. She's in the building. Appreciate you for tapping in. Everybody that's watching in general, appreciate y'all for coming out. We're going to be back tomorrow, me and Sydney. And then Thursday, we returning the open mic. Friday, make sure y'all tap in. We about to get up out of here. Is there anything that y'all want to leave the people with before we go?
For anybody that was living in the Midwest or the Northeast, my heart goes out to you. All of the communities affected by those storms. I'm praying for you guys and hoping that you guys have a recovery and that everyone's okay. That was really, really rough out there.
I think the only thing that I would say is I would echo what Sydney had said about making sure that your arguments are constructive. And I would go even further and say, ensure that arguments are constructive. And argue on behalf of your counterpart as well as on behalf of your own, to ensure that you show that you are not attacking them. It is not you against them. It is understanding of how to move forward. By helping them, by helping your significant other, especially when you have a greater sense of the argument, and you know that you have superior knowledge on what it is you're arguing. Being able to help them bolster their point lets them know that you are not attacking them, and indicates that it is more about how do we resolve the argument rather than attacking each other. It becomes a huge stress relief when someone understands that they aren't being attacked. The argument isn't with them, it is with an idea. Because people have no problem arguing ideas. People have a huge problem, as they should, defending themselves.
Well said, sir. Shout outs to Jason. Shout outs to Sydney. We about to get up off of here. Y'all have a blessed night. Drive safe. Don't stress out. Wednesday's around the corner. And just have a good day. That's all I'm going to say. Have a good day. We up out of here. Y'all take it easy. I will see y'all tomorrow, Lord willing.
Bye, guys.
Later.